that. And I have to set it out so that you see how this case goes together. And I'm going to try to work with you on that this morning and try to help you understand it as best I can. Plaintiff's case began as a section that dealt with the background of all of us, why we're here, why Martin King was assassinated, why he came to Memphis before he was assassinated. So we dealt with the background. Then we moved into a second area concern, which was local conspiracy, we called it. That meant what was happening here in Memphis, what events were going on that constituted conspiracy, legally, civil conspiracy under the law. Because that's really what we're asking you to find, is that there was a conspiracy. Thirdly, we dealt with a crime scene. What was this crime scene all about? Where was the crime scene? What happened there? Fourthly, we went into the rifle. This is the murder weapon. Discussed the murder weapon and asked you to consider all the evidence with respect to the murder weapon. Moved next to a shadowy figure called Raoul. Who was this man who was claimed to have been James Earl Ray's controller in the role that he played in this case. Then we moved beyond that to what we've called a broader conspiracy, beyond Memphis, that reached into the higher levels of the government of the United States and some of its agents and officials. We moved through that with you. We went beyond that then into really what amounts to a cover-up. What was the cover-up activity and why is that important and why have these events been shielded from public view so that only you 12, 14 here, day after day in his honor, alone perhaps in this broad land have heard this evidence. How could that be? A case as important as this. How could that be? But it has been a case. Then we considered the defendant's admissions. The defendant, the named defendant in this case, his actual admissions against his own interests. And what is in evidence with respect to that? Now, we move to the local conspiracy that related to the death of Martin Luther King. You've heard evidence of a very reputable 40-year in business store owner sit up there and tell you that he always bought, every Thursday he went to Frank Roberto's warehouse. That was his last stop before he went back to Somerville. And on that Thursday, April 4, he heard the owner of that place take the telephone and scream into it, "Shoot the son of a bitch when he comes on the balcony," and amongst other things. That's the first indication of the involvement of Mr. Frank Roberto, which information was given to the police and the FBI and forgotten about. Then you've heard two other independent witnesses testified different ends of the trial. One called as a witness by the defense, Mrs. Laveda Addison, who had this conversation with Mr. Liberto in her cafe. The Liberto leaned over the table at the time when the select committee hearings were on. Apparently something came on the television and whispered to Mrs. Addison, "I arranged to have Martin Luther King killed." She jumped back and was shocked. So Liberto puts himself in it against his own interest, mind you. He has said that. He's entitled to believe that. Then comes Mrs. Laveda Addison's son, Whitlock Addison's son, Nathan, who confronts Liberto, and Liberto again confirms the same thing to him. So we see now Mr. Frank Liberto's involvement in this whole scenario. Then we have from the defendant himself in sessions that are before you, and you've heard testimony from Ambassador Young and Mr. King about how he was approached. And he was asked to assist or become involved in this assassination, again by Mr. Liberto. And how he was told that he would be visited by a man called Raoul. He would first receive some money, be visited by a man called Raoul. He would pass the money to Raoul. He would receive a gun. That he was being asked to participate in this endeavor, and he should not worry because there would be no police around. The police would not be there. We've heard him say that, in fact, he did these things and that he received the gun after the shooting. He said he received the gun right at his back door. That's as far as he went in his admissions, and he also, of course, said he didn't know what was going on. Neither Ambassador Young or Mr. King believed him in that respect. Didn't know what was going on. Now, why would anyone say this? Is this something new? No. You heard testimony from witnesses who indicated that Mr. Jowers had said this to them years ago, as much as 20 years ago. He had said this. He had said that he knew how Martin Luther King was killed. He had indicated to them that he didn't do it, but he knew how it was done, and in one case actually told the same story way back then that he's telling now. So this is not some afterthought for Mr. Jowers to try to make a movie or become have notoriety or something like that. This is a consistent story that has been around for a long time, and other witnesses from previous times have confirmed it. So, other indications of the local conspiracy. Well, what are they? You've heard about the removal of Detective Reddick, who was a police officer on surveillance duty on the afternoon. He was removed within an hour of the killing, told there was a threat on his life, and he was sent home to arrive at his home at the time of the assassination. Never to hear about this threat again. This was a phony threat. I think it became quite clear. They didn't trust him because he was a community relations officer, had been seconded into intelligence, and when it came to the last minute, they had to pull him off because he might have seen something, done something that was untrustworthy. So Reddick was pulled off.